right, everybody, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you. The All-Star Game is now behind us. All the festivities around the All-Star Game is behind us. And now we can begin to focus on the second half of the season. Let's do it. All right, folks, so for this video, we're going to talk about the top five things that must happen for the Mets here in the second half, or things they have to do here in the second half to assure themselves or give themselves a chance to win this division and get to the postseason. Right now, the Mets are 47-40. They are holding on to first place in the National League East. They have been in first place for a couple of months now, and as we all know, the NL East itself has been a division of inconsistency for that matter, as teams like Washington, Philadelphia, Atlanta just can't seem to get going. And the Mets, even though at times this year has been a stop and start, even though at times this year they have had a lot of injuries, and we have seen terrific performances by a lot of their understudies, for that matter, or guys off the bench, as we move into the second half of this season, it is going to be imperative in the last 75 games for this team to click on all cylinders, especially by its stars. So let's take a look here. Number 5, healthy rotation. As we all know, the New York Mets pitching staff has one of the lowest ERAs in baseball. They've had one of the lowest ERAs, team ERAs, in baseball all year. They're 3.43 team ERA. Starters about 3.35 ERA. They've been very, very good. But keep in mind, they have done this without Carlos Carrasco, without Noah Syndergaard, for really the entire season. And we don't know really when we're going to see those guys again at all this year. There's a chance we could see Carrasco sometime in August, for that matter, as he's coming back from a hamstring tear injury. We have yet to see him pitch in a Met uniform. They would love to see him come back in August. In a lot of ways, if he comes back and is effective, it would be the equal in a lot of ways to making a trade deadline move. Of course, Syndergaard, a little more touch and go with coming back from Tommy John surgery, which it looked like earlier in the year he was going to be able to come back from in June, if not July. That, of course, got pushed back now till September. So you can't really rely on what may be. You have to look at what is right now with the Mets. You know you're going to have Jacob deGrom at the top of this rotation. Yes, he has looked human a little bit here in recent weeks. He is still the linchpin of this rotation. Behind him with Marcus Stroman, Taijuan Walker, both of whom have had great years. The Mets have a pretty good 1-2-3, especially with deGrom being the ace. But the question is going to be, can they get these guys back healthy? Can they keep Stroman, deGrom, who has had nagging injuries this year, and Walker pitching at a high level? Can these guys continue to pitch at the high level they have pitched at so far this year and avoid the injury bug that has plagued the Mets at times this season? That's going to be a big question. We know David Peterson is going to be out for a very long time after he has suffered an injury. He's no longer in this rotation. So the back end of this rotation is a big question mark. And it's going to lead, of course, to one of our other big topics that we'll discuss later on here in this video. Number 4. Hitters gotta hit. Hitters gotta hit. The hitters have got to hit in this lineup. And as I mentioned at the top, the Mets have gotten a lot of really good performances from guys that you didn't really expect big things from this year. Guys like Kevin Pillar, Jonathan Villar, Jose Peraza, who has been a revelation off the bench with big hits, big home runs in big spots like he had against Milwaukee and the Yankees, for that matter, in recent weeks. But as you take a look at the stats right there, the big guys haven't really lived up to the baseball card yet. Francisco Lindor, yes, his defense has been very good this year, hasn't really got it going at all this year offensively. He does have 11 home runs, but only 36 RBIs, 70 hits. He's only hitting at .227. He has got to find a way in the last 75 games to get his bat going. I understand it's an adjustment from American League to National League. I totally get that, especially early in the season. But at this point, he has got to get rolling. It's been a disappointing year for him in year one of this big $340 million contract. Pete Alonso, was starting to show some signs of getting going before the All-Star break. He had 4 home runs here coming down the stretch here in July, here at the start of the July, going into that, of course, home run derby that he ended up winning just the other day. 17 home runs, 49 RBIs, but he, too, you like to see get going, get that 250 batting average up to around 265 or so if he can do that. And then you see James McCann, Michael Conforto, Jeff McNeil, especially Conforto, McNeil, both of those guys just recently coming off of the injury list. Those 2 guys really need to get going, especially Conforto, who is in a walk year, a free agent year this year. He has not put up good numbers at all this year. Injuries didn't help, but 3 home runs, 19 RBIs. The big guys got to start hitting if this team is going to finish the job here and get this team to the postseason. If the Mets continue to struggle offensively and continue to struggle producing runs, right now they're one of the worst offensive scoring teams in baseball this year, then it's going to invite trouble. And a team like the Phillies, who right now are on the heels of the Mets, right now only 3.5 games back, they're a team with a lot of firepower in their lineup. That's a team you would have to watch out for. And you're going up. You're going to see a lot of tough series coming up here for the Mets. Going trips to L.A., trips to San Francisco. Those teams will eventually come here. You do have 5 more games with the Phillies. You do have a number of games left with Atlanta and Washington as well. And there's even makeup games from early in the year that have to be made up as well this year down the stretch. So, can this Met offense, get it going? And if not, do they have to go out there and make some moves? Number 3, bullpen must be great. Early in the year, the bullpen was phenomenal for the Mets. It really was. You go back as far as April, and this team, the team ERA for the Mets' entire team was at 2.90, and the bullpen was a big reason why. You had Edwin Diaz pitching to an ERA around 2. Miguel Castro was riding up the radar gun. His ERA was around 2. Trevor May, even though he had had some struggles early in the year, was pitching well enough. First month or so of the year, month and a half of the year, the bullpen was very, very solid for the Mets. But as time goes on and as the season wears on, as you would expect, things start to unravel a little bit, and they have for this Met bullpen, especially here in the month of July. The team ERA is now at 4.26, and you see a lot of these guys have been stretched out. And a lot of these guys, and they really do need help in this bullpen, and they need these guys to get going in the bullpen, especially Diaz and Junior Familia and Trevor May. Those 3 guys are the linchpins of this bullpen. Edwin Diaz has gotten hit hard his last few starts. His last 4 innings, he has given up 4 runs, 3 earned. And, of course, the blown save against the Pittsburgh Pirates on Sunday. So he has got to get it going. This bullpen, if this Mets team is going to do anything in the postseason, and this is the big question for Met fans, if this Met team is going to do anything in the postseason, they need May, Familia, Diaz, Lugo to all be pitching at their best. Any kind of hiccups, and we could be looking at a situation where the Mets end up blowing a game, losing a game they shouldn't towards the end of the season or in the postseason, and it could end up costing them. That's just a fact. So take these numbers with a grain of salt, as you see here for the month of July. Again, Lugo, ERA is at 3.86. Diaz, 6.23. Aaron Loop had struggles the other day. His ERA is at 2.08, which is respectable, but he struggled his last outing on the hill. Familia, 4.50. May, 4.50. Those are numbers that you really don't like seeing. I know it's July. We still got a long way to go. But you want to see these guys get going again and going in the right direction again as we move towards the later part of the year, August and September, of course. Number 2, aggressive at the trade deadline. How aggressive are the Mets going to be here in the trade deadline period between now and July 31st? And that's going to be a big, big question. There are a lot of names that are being thrown out there. The Mets need help, especially from the starting pitching standpoint, the bullpen standpoint, and even offensively. Maybe it's an outfielder, maybe it's a corner infielder at third base. They need some help. There was some rumors early on that the Mets had some interest in Josh Donaldson, who is the third baseman of the Minnesota Twins, who right now is hitting at 249 with 13 home runs and 35 RBIs. He is 35 years old. Is he a guy who's a fit? I'm not sure. There was rumors the Mets had some preliminary discussions with Minnesota. Nothing has come out of that. There is, of course, everyone's going to talk about. These are the names, and of course, the names that everyone's going to talk about as far as hitters are concerned is going to be Chris Bryant, third baseman / left fielder now for the Chicago Cubs, who's most likely going to be available. And not only will he be available, but you also have possibility of Craig Kimbrell, who is the closer for the Cubs. He could also be somebody that could be on the market at here in the next couple of weeks here before the deadline. He has a 0.57 ERA, 20 saves. If for a deal like that, and keep in mind Bryant, who would I guess would be packaged in that deal if you're going to make any deal with the Cubs, you're going to have to give up a lot, especially to get those two guys. And Chris Bryant is a pending free agent at the end of this season. Do the Mets feel they can keep him at third base if they're going to trade a big package of prospects for him? Do you feel that you can sign him in the offseason, considering you already signed Francisco Lindor to a big contract? You have Michael Conforto to deal with as well. You eventually we're going to talk about Jacob deGrom's contract and Pete Alonso's contract at some point in the near future. Is Chris Bryant a guy that's worth bringing in as a rental or someone that you want to re-sign at some point in the offseason? It's a big, big question. That's the thing Mets have to ask for themselves even long-term before making that kind of move for Bryant and or Craig Kimbrell for that matter, especially if Bryant is involved in that deal. The other names out there that are going to be talked about, Jose Berrios of the Minnesota Twins, probably the Twins' best pitcher right now. I've seen some other articles up there, people mentioning Kenta Maeda or Michael Pineda as possibilities for the Mets, but those two guys are kind of back at end of the rotation guys. Maybe you can get something, you can give up something very cheap for those guys. Berrios is going to require more creativity on the part of the Mets in order to make that happen. 7-3 with a 3.48 ERA. He has 1 year left in arbitration. If you make that deal with Minnesota for Berrios, you're bringing him in to not just pitch for you the rest of this year, but all of next year and potentially re-signing him to a contract. A long-term deal would be behind Jacob deGrom for that matter. Jermaine Marquez of the Colorado Rockies. He is signed through 2024. He is possibly the Rockies' best pitcher right now. Rockies, of course, long out of it. Would the Mets have to get very creative as far as prospects are concerned to go out there and get him? He's a starting pitcher. So those are some names to look out for here that are going to get mentioned here as we get closer to the trade deadline. And again, the Mets have needs, especially a pitcher. I would think the Mets are more likely going to go towards reliever, considering they have Carrasco and Syndergaard still coming back. I'm sure they're going to put a lot of stock into that, and they're going to look to try to beef up this bullpen if they can. Although, if you have an opportunity to get a Jermaine Marquez or a Jose Berrios, and you don't have to give up a whole heck of a lot to do it, and you're Sandy Alderson and Zach Scott, you got to try to make that move happen if you are the New York Mets, especially when you have a chance to go to the playoffs and potentially a World Series. So that is going to be that's really the biggest key of this second half. And I know it's number 4 here on this list, but that's the biggest key of all: is how aggressive are the Mets going to be on the trade market? Number 1, communication between the manager and front office. As we all know at this point, the way baseball is run now, baseball's run through the front office. Managers don't make the lineup cards anymore. They're not the ones who are making decisions of who plays and who doesn't play anymore. That's all being done by the general manager. It's being done by the stat guys. Guys in the front office are making those decisions. And as we've seen at times this year, there have been a lot of moves that have left people scratching their heads. I bring up the Pittsburgh game just as an example. Mets deciding not to go with Jacob deGrom in the last game before the All-Star break. Where you're having a whole week off. Why not pitch him in the game? They opt not to, make it a bullpen game, and you have to wonder, what was some of the decision-making going on there between the manager, of course, being Luis Rojas, Zach Scott, the Mets front office, in deciding on the inning load for a lot of these pitchers, and who came up with the idea of putting out Edwin Diaz out there for a 5-out save. it's those kind of decisions that make you scratch your head, and those are the kind of decisions that could end up making or breaking a season. So communication and certainly making the right moves are going to be imperative here for the Mets from that standpoint of the manager and the front office. Keep in mind, you also have a manager here in Luis Rojas who is basically, not unlike Aaron Boone in a lot of ways, kind of out of options here. At the end of the season, he's really auditioning here with the new front office, with the new ownership, to be the manager long term. So far, you would have to say he's certainly doing a yeoman's effort to prove that he should be the manager moving forward. But this is where, here in the second half, he is going to earn that opportunity moving forward for 2022 and beyond. So those are the keys here, folks, for the rest of the 2021 season. Mets are in first place. Can they keep it going? Again, just to reiterate, a healthy rotation. The hitters have got to hit. The bullpen has got to get going again after a sluggish slump they've been in here going into the month of July, through the month of July. They got to be aggressive at the trade deadline. You'd love to see them get at least a reliever out of this trade deadline, maybe two. If not, try to help this offense with a hitter that can solidify the slump. Because again, we don't even know when J.D. Davis, for example, is going to get back to the slump. That's another name that we can't forget either, of third base, to play third base for this Mets team. And then, of course, communication with the front office and the manager in decision making, how quality those decisions are made, the quality of decisions that are made by that group. So that's it, folks. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening. Remember to like and subscribe here if you want more content, and we'll talk to you next time. Remember, follow us on the social media at OpenMicNJ on Twitter, Facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. And remember, again, like and subscribe for more content.